is like the moment the siphon fizzled on the resistor, I knew that I was not gonna play account siphon for the rest of the game. So I committed myself to, at this point I committed to keeping tags to a minimum and just playing the pure mill game. And Chris responds to that by trashing DLR and Fall Guy. So that's his toll booth money gone, which I'm happy about. And I wasn't too mad about the DLR being milled trash because there was still 2 more in my deck. But I did need to find more Fall Guys.
But the interesting thing is how you've put him in a hole, because now he can't score out quickly, and I think that's the really delicate balance that's quite hard to get with DLR. Like, this game's interesting specifically because you don't land a successful siphon for the entire game. Spoiler.
I basically committed myself.
But despite that, you still managed to get the lock on and mill him out from doing that. So you kind of keep him poor economy-wise for the entirety of the game because he tries to trash stuff, and at the same time you're getting an advantage by keeping that pressure on by milling cards and getting him to DLR stuff.
Yeah, interesting question with regards to Chris's play. Do you think it was right for him to spend 8 to trash? In that spot.
So if he doesn't, if he doesn't respond to the DLR in play, don't you just go mill 4, mill 4, mill 4 every turn?
Yeah, but
in addition to that, don't you also see cards with max and you put down another Fall Guy, you put down another daily reversal? At that point, he either spends the 8 to trash it. He doesn't have an agenda in hand as well, so, and he's drawing frantically to find the agendas. Like, his way to get to the late game at this point is to keep you off your combo as much as possible.
Yeah, the thing with going to late game is that unless you have some sort of asset economy going, like an Adonis or Bankers, which he has neither of in this case, I don't see you being able to outpace the ability of me to set up my milling engine.
So this is one of the interesting things with the CTM deck that Chris took, which is it's actually got very few economy assets. So it's running 2 bankers. I think it's running a pad. So actually, so the version that I took had all 3 pads. So Chris opted to take pop-ups as part of his economy package, which obviously are useless against DLR Max. So actually, I think his economy is in a bad place because of the way he's designed his deck. Now, the pop-ups are obviously brilliant against, say, Temujin Wizard, or even against things like Hate Bear, where they're going to run the same server multiple times. But in this matchup, it's not as good. No. And actually, you can probably see that having an impact here.
Yeah, so with that weak economy, I do question his decision to contest my mill engine at all. I think that 8 credits could have gone into the toll booth and he could have just pumped the agendas from there.
So I think from your side of the board, that makes sense. From Chris's side of the board, he hasn't got any agendas and he's going, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
I think if you also look, I've just been counting some cards, and I think Chris is probably 20-something cards into his deck, and he's probably seen, well, he's got food in hand. You've got a food.
And a
Beal. And a Beal. And that's recent, right? That's not been that long.
So the next question is, Ben, if he doesn't trash those 2 things, what's your next turn? Your next turn is mill 4. And what's the agenda density in that deck? That agenda density in that deck is insane, right? And he's thinking, well, I've not drawn the agendas, and he's going to start milling them all, and he's only going to have so many Jacksons. So he doesn't want you to be getting the agendas. Like, if he's got 2 or 3 agendas in hand at that point, then he's probably okay with you to mill because he'll just score out. He'll install an Astra or whatever behind that toll booth, and he'll just score out for fun. But with all the agendas in the deck, then he's not really able to do that. So he's trying to slow you down and stop you from putting all of his agendas in archives.
Yeah,
right, fair enough. I can see that.
Before we continue, I kind of want to comment on a play you made last turn. So one of the plays you made was to Deja Vu for Fall Guy and reinstall it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the play I love most in DLR Max, and I think we probably spoke about it prior to Worlds anyway, Ben. But one of the things I found most was when people, felt they had enough money to start contesting the max board state, and they'd start trashing, and they'd go through like 2, maybe even 3, 4 guys, and then they'd get to the first of 2 DLRs, and then on your turn you'd just be like, okay, deja vu, install 2 4 guys, and they'd just go, oh,
Yeah, in some ways.
I don't really know what the answer is to this. Like,
No.
I counted to be able to trash that next turn, and then I would be safe. But now I've got to spend, 12 credits, not 4. Oh, I can't do it. So I think it's a really strong play. And obviously, you haven't got a DLR at the moment because Chris has trashed the one you have installed. But actually, Chris spent 8 to get rid of 2 cards, one of which you've got back. As soon as you get the other DLR back on the table, you're in a really good position again. So it's a really good play, and I really like it.
Yeah, like I wasn't able to get any siphons this game, and you usually use deja vus to recur siphons, but deja vu for Fall Guy basically replicates that tempo swing, costing the record basically 5 of their clicks, 4 click for credits and 1 to trash, versus a couple of clicks from you. That's a huge, that's a huge investment from the corp, and yeah, so.
It's also quite spirit breaking as well, I think. Like, if you spent all of that and you spent all your money going, right, I'm finally on top of the board state, and then for you to do that and put that back again, it's like, brilliant. I've now got to do all that again, pretty much. And it's pretty soul destroying. Classic Dave play.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a fan of contesting the max board state unless you have some sort of asset econ, because I think most decks can't contest it. Alright, so here obviously I'm going for the DLR. Just getting a successful R&D run for it. And that's where I start milling him out. I see a Jackson here that goes in the bin, so I believe... Yep, that's his second Jackson, the first is still on the table.
So is it worth commenting, Ben, and this is probably one of the key bits of the game, in my opinion, is you have a Joshua B on the in hand.
Yep.
But you haven't played it, and you've had it for a while.
Yep.
So I know the answer to this question, but why have you not installed it?
So, in the lead up to Worlds, I've been talking to yourself and Mark a lot, discussing what are DLR Max's weaknesses and strengths, and we all came to the conclusion that this matchup, Max versus CTM, is all about, does the court find psychographics? If they do, they probably win. If they don't, you are in a good place. And that is something I can't control, whether Chris finds psychographics, but what I can control is the amount of damage that psychographics does. And to do that, don't take tags. It was about as simple as that.
Very good. I would also say that in testing with DLR Max, I found that all seeing eye is a pain, but actually, a lot of the time, you can recover from it, and you will often still win because they're so focused on landing the all-seeing eye. So it's definitely not as game-changing as psychographics. So
yes, it's not as backbreaking as most people make it out to be honest. Although that means you have to play around it. Like, you have to build your resource rig in such a way that it's not that vulnerable to all-seeing eye. Like, I wouldn't be able to float tags from turn 1 if I knew he had all-seeing eye, for example.
Yeah, agreed. You would, however, keep duplicates in hand, so you'd have one of everything, lure him into playing the all-seeing eye, using the Fall Guy to protect whatever the key card was, and then install your duplicates.
Yep. Alright,
so Chris has just made an interesting play here.
Yes.
If you look in his hand, he's got a pad campaign. He's also got an Astro and a Beal now.
Yes.
And his reaction to that being on, I think, is it 7 or 8 credits, was to try and trash the Wireless Net Pavilion.
Yep. He was on.
Do you think that he, at this point, Dave, Ben, that, like, given the board state, he's still not found the breaking news that he wants, but he does have a toll booth, I think, which is in front of the Jackson.
That is.
Like, do you put your agenda, your Astro here, and start scoring out? Like, as a board state, as a DLR max player in your position here, if he installs something behind there, I'm going, well, it's probably an agenda, but what are the chances of me being able to get into it? Like, if you retrieval run for the Fem, do you then go and get it, maybe? Maybe that's what he's worried about. And why hasn't he installed the pad campaign either? Like, that's going to set your economy back quite a lot to trash it.
One of the things I think here now. I don't know what Chris was going through Chris's mind. Please be aware everyone's very jet lagged. It's been a very long day, etc., etc. So I don't really like criticizing plays because I hate to be that person on the internet.
No, it's
Because
fine. Constructive criticism is all good.
Yeah, I'm
I know.
not criticizing. I'm just kind of trying to understand kind of why he's decided to do that.
So knowing Chris, he's a very careful player.
Yes.
So he doesn't take lots of risks.
Yep.
So my guess would be he knows he can probably res the toll booth, but then he probably can't res the ice on archives, which means if you retrieve or got for the fem, you could probably get in and get it. And so he's probably thinking, okay, I'm not in a secure enough position to do that. Interestingly, he's got a toll booth in hand. Now, I find that a bit weird. He did have an Enigma from Overdrawing with Jackson, and that's a really good piece of ice. It's cheap to res, you can put it in front of or behind a piece of ice, and it's a real problem for Max, because you don't have an answer apart from Fem. And I think that I would probably have considered trying to jam out agendas behind an Enigma toll booth remote, feeling quite safe. And that would probably be a better investment for my money. He might feel that's a bit slow, and trying to stop you getting set up is more important. I don't think I agree, but I could be wrong. I also agree with Mark that getting the pad down is pretty important because the chances are you might not trash it, and if you don't, then that's probably pretty big. So it depends what's going on with your economy when it gets rezzed, I think.
Yeah, I think throwing out the pad is never a bad idea. At least it forces 2 credits and attack out of me. With regards to Chris playing safely, I do know that as well, and I can't agree with you more. I think we'll see an example of that later, but possibly one of the thoughts running through his mind at this point is I want to protect the Jackson in the remote because I want to use it to save my milled agendas. I think at this point he hasn't milled too many yet. He wants to save the Jackson that you see in the bin and 2 more. So he doesn't really want to start scoring in that remote just yet. He's probably looking at an EOI plus psychographics win. So he can psychographics a build to 4 points, which is not too difficult.
I'd argue that scoring an Astro basically enables a lot of those plays.
Actually, so yeah, he would cycle the Astro, of course, yes.
Well, no, if you score an Astro, then you can score a break and use, or you can use it to over advance a Beal or score food off a Sansan or whatever. Like having an Astro scored really helps a lot of your plays. And okay, he doesn't need to worry about tagging you at the moment, but he does want to score a breaking news so they can exchange it. So I would argue that scoring, like trying to rush out an Astro here, is good and also puts you under pressure. At the moment, you're just like, well, even if I don't DLR him, I'll just win by max. He'll just keep drawing through his deck.
Yeah, that's true. I can see he's trying to draw for the cycle so that he can cycle the Astro while still keeping the Jackson in the remote. And that's fine, I guess, but he's not finding the cycle. So, in the meantime, since...
Deja vu for Fall Guy. Lovely.
Here we go again. Yeah.
And at this point, he's basically spending 4 credits and a click for you to spend that, and you're keeping your board state, and he's doing nothing really to advance his. Although I quite like this play. This play is very cool. In putting the commercial bankers on the Sansan and the MVT. Which, he then spends his money, and he knows he's going to get that back next turn if you're not going to run in and trash it.
Yeah, of course I can't really run and trash it. Actually I could. I probably should have, but well, see my reaction there. That was the last card I wanted to see on the remote. I didn't think he was bold enough to put an agenda there, but Bankers was pretty bad.
So why is Bankers bad?
That Bankers there basically is 2 free credits for him. He installs it for a click, he gains 2 credits by resing it. And that allows him to actually contest my rig, and I'm running out of Fall Guys at this point.
So, okay, my question is why are you worried about Bankers when you can just go and trash it?
Yeah, that's why I did the next turn. Like I'd rather not have, like, given the choice, I would rather run it last turn than this turn. Every credit matters.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm out of deck, but I do know I have a levy in hand, or rather same old thing in hand. So you notice that I'm always staying on 4 credits, so I can take credit, install same old thing, and perform levy turn, and then I'll get my free card next turn from Max. So I'm basically staying on that credit level until he trashes my DLR. So an interesting question is, would you levy right now, or would you attempt to mill as much as you can?
So, why do you need to levy?
To recycle 4 guys, to recycle DLRs.
Okay, but until he has trashed said Fall Guys and wireless net pavilions and DLRs, why do you care? So
No, I
my
don't.
argument would be exactly. So my argument would be if he's not going to respond and trash the DLR, then until he does that, there's no point because you're still threatening. The turn after he does it, then yeah, sure, let's cycle it all back in. I mean, if he, I would wait till he trashes the DLR and just keep milling 4 until he does.
Yep, I agree with you, and that's why I just continue milling. So he mills a breaking news here, he mills a bill here, and I think a food, I think. So yeah, he remarked that I managed to mill 3 agendas off the top immediately after that Jackson use. So the moment I did that, he knew that if I ran archives I would win, so this is why he went for the Jackson here instead of building up his board state or agendas, and immediately used Jackson. So I'm not I would not have ran archives in this situation. Would you have like I don't know.
I think the answer to that then is no, because he's on 0 points and you're on 2. Why would you run archives at this point? Like he's not threatening you. Like you run archives as a kind of last ditch. I might lose this game,
Exactly.
therefore I'm going to run here and check that I've done it,
Yep.
or manage to mill right enough for the cards. The other thing I want to point out, he trashes DLR here rather than wireless net.
Yes.
Do you think that's the right play?
I think he just
Well-
really wanted to stem the bleeding because his deck was running really thin, and if he could kill the if he trashed a wireless net, he would get milled 4. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
he'll take 4 mills.
He's got no money, right? So if he had an extra 2 credits, then yes, you probably do both. But otherwise, I think you're in a. I mean, Chris is in a real rough place. He's been too slow, and it's got to the late game, which is where Max is favoured. Now, Ben's going to have to reset up, which will give Chris some opportunities. And Chris has got the Psycho, and I think he's quite reliant on that at the moment. But you don't have enough tags.
The other advantage that you've got, which we're now going to see when I think you draw 2 in your opening hand,
Oh, that was
is
huge.
that
Yeah.
is that by doing that and making him trash it, now that you've levied, you've got 3 DLRs in there as opposed to 2 or even 1 because they've gone in the bin. So by doing that, you've massively increased your likelihood of seeing it in the deck, or if not, you're going to see it quite early on in your next hand anyway. It's sort of similar to when people were playing Spy Cam Haley, and that they kind of used all of their spy cams and then they'd go again and then get them all out with Replicator. You wait until the last one's gone and then you can increase your chances of seeing it on the next cycle through the deck.
That's true. So he installed something in the remote, I believe it was an Astro. I think I could have ran it and stole it. Well, of course I did not.
But this is this is the thing. He could have probably done this ages ago, right? And would you have run it? Maybe. But you put a second ice there and then saw something, and eventually, you just want to, as DLR Max, want to set up your board state more than you want
got all
to
3
challenge
DLR.
remotes.
No, I only found 2 DLRs. Only. 2 was really, really good to see. So I just, did the obvious thing here. Installed them both. And pure breaking news off the top, why not?
I mean, that's pretty big. Like, he doesn't seem to be able to draw them, and
No.
therefore can't exchange of information which,
He's
So-
really reliant on. Yep.
like, his draw seems to have been pretty ropey. But effectively, he's not put enough pressure under you early, and I think it's because he was reliant on the Psycho game plan, which, because of no Joshua B and no Siphon, you've not enabled for him, and that's the difference between this match and the earlier match you played. So I think his game plan was the same as last time, whereas yours was now different.
Yeah, pretty much that. And yeah, actually he got pretty close to winning. I think at this point he's 1 turn short. I think he could have gotten me next turn. Barely. All he had to do was score the build with Astro and then score breaking news and then exchange. So it was
Yeah.
actually a closer game than it looked.
Yes, I do agree. But I think if Chris had scored out earlier, like he'd taken a risk and tried to score out or bluffed out an agenda somewhere along the lines, then actually that would put you under a lot more pressure. Now, his draw seemed, to, as I said, to be a bit ropey. Like, he didn't draw breaking news, which meant, like, if he'd been able to EOI that, then it would have been, a very different game in some ways.
That was the first time, the very last card on the deck was the first breaking news that Chris had seen. I think that's obviously quite key in this matchup. And like you can say, well, breaking news is a really important card, and that's why you run 3 of. But in certain games, you're not going to see it, or you're not going to see it in time, which is why the UOI scoring plan is certainly one that's not always 100% foolproof. But like I said, and Dave's already said that if he does bluff out that agenda there, then he can get the. He definitely, with the Astro, he guarantees the score of the Beal, and then he's got psychographics in hand, and you've got four tags at that point, and he did have psychographics and EOI in hand, so the next time he sees an agenda, he's pretty much guaranteed to score it, and then he can EOI whatever that agenda is for the food that's in your hand. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, I guess.
It is.
Yeah, Chris's game plan was solid. He just didn't see the cards that he needed to make it work. And I think and this is probably the difference in my playstyle to Chris's, is I would have started making like remote agenda plays and bluffs. So I would have started installing stuff in the remote, sometimes agendas, sometimes not, as I drew them, and either asking you to respond to them, or give me whatever it was I put in there. Now, maybe that's just hindsight, but and that's the most valuable thing when looking at these videos. But I think that would have put you under more pressure and given you some tough decision trees on what you wanted to do with your clicks.
To be fair, going back to us having a previous match, which wasn't recorded unfortunately, but what happened in that match was that Chris got a lot of assets and agendas. He just started spamming them as though it was a NEH total backstack, and I couldn't afford the tempo to check them all. So in the end, there was like one global food, one build, and a whole bunch of assets out on the table. And I think he knew that I would be more aggressive in running because we talked about it, and he told me I should have ran them. So I think that contributed to his more passive play this time round.
Yeah, so that other game really, I think, influenced quite a lot in this game. It's quite interesting.
It is. But yeah.
Because if you used a strategy to win once, you try and use it again, right? In the same or a similar matchup.
And as the loser, you try to switch up your strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely see that contributing big time.
Do you think it's significant that Chris chose to install the Astro behind the toll booth when he trashed the final DLR, assuming that Ben was gonna then he would credit up and levy rather than kind of retrieve a run to go in and get it? So when he installs that Astro at that point, like, does he think, well, he's definitely going to do this instead and it's the safer play? Because we were talking about making that play earlier on when he had the Astro in hand and he could have stuffed it behind there and then potentially gone on to score it if Ben hadn't have run it. There's an interesting decision thing there, whereas you're so focused on the DLR plan that he just assumes that you're gonna do that. You're gonna same old thing levy to go again rather than just constantly rely on the DLR position.
Yeah, I think Chris is probably more aware of the amount of recursion Ben had used at that point as well than we have been watching this. So if Ben's got like one piece of recursion left, there's a 90% chance Ben's going to want to save it for levy. And would he be willing to use that on retrieval run, for example, to get into what is possibly an agenda but not guaranteed to be one? It could be a Jackson or something. No, probably not. So it felt probably like for Chris a safe time to do it, because all the recursion had been used up.
Interestingly, I don't actually think he has enough money to res the toll booth at this point.
No, he
doesn't. He just assumes you won't run it.
Yes, he just assumed I won't run it, and I think at this point looking at his expression, I think he felt really like he wasn't gonna win. He was on 0 points, so he needed to do what he needed to do, and that was the play.
And I think that is like the hindsight lesson, and that's literally it. Like it's only with hindsight that you can say probably should have just jammed the agenda earlier.
Yeah, I mean it's very easy for us to say that, of course.
Yes, that's what 100%,
of course.
definitely.
Yeah, but I find that for a lot of good players, CTM matchups, no matter DLR max or otherwise, come down to can you jam a build early? Can you jam an Astro early? And I think it's no different here. If he had 2 more points to begin with, things could have been quite different.
Yeah, I think Chris made the entirely right play by putting that Jackson there in a safe remote and was drawing, and he just kept drawing ice and more events. Like he didn't see any agendas. And well, there's one of the breaking news is that he's been looking for all game. And I think if he sees one of those early and exchanges it for that, then he's probably in a lot stronger position because he probably does psycho out the Astro, and then he can just score the Beal at leisure as long as he's got 2 credits, right? So I think the breaking news is really key in this, and the fact that he doesn't see it is quite important.
Yeah, like he knows very full well that I'm not gonna let any senses live, so protecting the Jackson was a good idea. Drawing with it was a good idea. You just don't see your full combo in some games. Sometimes you don't see your breaking news, sometimes you don't see your UI. That's how it is.
Yeah, and I think that Chris's draw was ropey for sure.
Right, any final thoughts on this game? Alright, yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it. Yeah, that was quite a good but very long but very good discussion. Well, thanks again for coming on. Cheers, guys.
No worries.
Thanks very much.
Alright, have a good day, everyone, and happy net running as usual. Goodbye.